Now we have level curve. This is the definition of level curve. Here, level curve is the graph of a function at a point. Here, we replace z by a point, or f of xy, we replaced by a point. Here, we say if f of xy to be c. C is a number. It's a real number. Then we draw the graph of f of xy equals c. We are going to draw the graph of this function. If we have two independent variables, that means it's in xy plane. We draw the graph of this function. And also we have trace. If you replace x and y by a constant, that means if we replace the independent variables by a constant, we say here we get, for example, if you replace x by c, we get z equals f of y. Here in the function we have only y because we replaced x by a constant. We have no x in the function, so you just have y in the function. This is the function, and then we draw the graph of this function, and it will be the trace. Even if we have y to be a constant, if we replace y by a constant, and we get z equals f of x. Since we have f of xy, z equals f of xy. If you replace x by a constant, we just have y in the function. But if we replace y by a constant, we just have x in the function. That means that z here is f of x. We draw the graph for this function, and it will be the trace for the function. Okay. So which one? Z?
Why do we need it?
We need the trace for sketching the graph of the function. We need to draw the graph of the level curve and also the traces to sketch the graph. We join these all together and we get the graph of the function in R3. Each of these graphs are in R2. That's in the plane. But when we combine these graphs together, we get a graph in R3. Okay. Here we say if we replace z by a constant, we get the level curve or a level curve. But if we replace x or y by a constant, we get traces. Okay. Now we have an example. Let me clean these. We have, yeah, it's on the xy plane. If z to be a constant, we get a graph on xy plane. Okay, but if we replace x by a constant, we get a graph on yz plane. Yeah, we named the horizontal one to be y and the vertical one is z. And if we replace y by c, that means we have z equals f of x. Here we have the graph on the xz plane. No, it's the same. Only the coordinates are going to be changed. Z is always the vertical one. Okay, with both, z is the vertical one. But if you have only x and y, x is the horizontal and y is the vertical. Okay, that means for traces, z is the vertical one, but for the level curve, y is the vertical axis. Now we have this example. We have given a function z, which is x squared plus y squared minus 9. We have given this function. We should answer these three questions. First, we should sketch the level curves of the function for z to be -9, -5, 0, and 7. At these 4 points, we are going to draw the level curve. It's given in the example. Yeah. Yes, it should be given. Even if it's not given, you can choose any number, any possible number actually. In the second part, we should sketch the traces. for x to be 0 and y to be 0. That means here we have two graphs, one for x to be 0 and one for y to be 0. And each one will be on an xy plane. Sorry, an xz plane and yz plane. But for this one, for the first one, we are going to draw all graphs together on one xy plane, all together on the same xy plane. And then sketching the graph of the function. The graph of this function is in R3. We combine these graphs together, we combine them together, we get the graph of this function. Okay, I'll tell you how. I'm gonna solve it. Okay, okay, for the first part of the question, we should sketch the level curves of the function. So our function is f of xy equals, which z equals this, x squared plus y squared minus 9. This is for part I. It says sketch the level curves for z to be -9, -5, 0, and 7. So z is -9, -5, yeah. At these 4 points, we should draw the level curves. For z to be -9, that means here we replace z by -9. So what we get? We get x squared plus y squared minus 9 equals -9. Here, at z to be -9, we get x squared plus y squared minus 9 equals -9. This is the function. It equals to y, and y is -9. So we just replace y by its value. That's all. Now we simplify the function. We get x plus x squared plus y squared equals 0. This is equation of a circle. This is equation of a circle, but its radius is 0. That means it's only the origin. At only the origin, we get that x squared plus y squared is 0. Yeah, that's all. Only the graph of this function is only 0. Look, I'm gonna tell you why. If we have a circle with radius, let's say 3, this is radius 3. If it's radius 2, it's like this. It's radius 2. It's if this radius 1, and it becomes smaller and smaller, smaller, and the radius is 0, we get only this point. Okay, so the circle becomes only a point. We are going to do it one by one. Yes, we are going to do it one by one. Yeah, it becomes 4. It's 4. So that means the radius is 2. So this will be, this one will be the graph of the function where z to be -5. Which one? For this one, I'm going to do it down here. Yes, the graph of this one is only a point, which is at the origin, because here we have no radius for the circle. That means it's only a point. Let me draw the graph here. If this is xy plane, this x, and that's y. Let's say it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4. Here, for the first value of z, which is 9, we get only 1 point at origin. We get only 1 point at origin. That means if z to be -9, at -9, we get only 1 point. How about at z to be 5? So -5. What we get? We get x squared plus y squared minus 9 equals -5. If we move this to there, it becomes +9. -9 minus 5 plus 9 is 4. We get x squared plus y squared equals 4. This also equation of a circle. Its radius is 2. It's 2. You just take the square for the right hand side. Its radius is 2. And the origin and the center is origin. So from 2, this is graph of the circle. Let's add 2. The radius is 2. This one, you say Z is -9. This one is Z is -5. And then for others, for Z to be 0, Z to be 0, then x squared plus y squared minus 9 equals 0. So x squared plus y squared equals 9. This is equation of a circle. The center is at 0, 0, and the radius is 3. The radius is 3. نيوتيرا هميشه بتل الركي دوزالي راست لها كش السيركل. Okay, this is r squared. So how about r? R is 3. Now we sketch the graph for the function at 3. This is Z equals 0. Then for Z to be 7, we say x squared plus y squared minus 9 equals 7. And so x squared plus y squared equals 16. Yeah. This add Z to be 7. This is add Z to be 0. So this is equation of a circle. Its radius is 4. At 4, we are going to the graph. This is Z to be 7. This is the level curves. This is the level curves. That's all. Okay, for the level curves, we just replace Z by the given values, one by one. And then we draw all together on the same coordinates. That's for level curves. Then for traces, it's for the first part. It's the answer for the first part. For the second part, we should sketch the traces of the function for x to be 0 and y to be 0. For x to be 0 and y to be 0. It's the second part, traces. For x to be 0, at x to be 0, so the function becomes z equals, z will see f of xy equals y squared minus 9. Is it? We get this. If you replace x to be 0 in this function, we get only y squared minus 9. As for x to be 0. Now we draw the graph of this function. It's a parabola. This is y and this is z coordinates. Z is always the vertical coordinates. If you have z in the function, it's always the vertical one.
Also, like if they ask you x is equal to 0, so we don't have x.
Yeah, we have no x. Yeah, as you see here, if you replace x by 0 here, what you get?
Only y.
Yeah, we just get y. So you get y squared minus 9. Now we are trying to draw the graph of this function. Y squared is this graph. This is the graph of y squared. How about y squared minus 9? It goes 9 units to down. It moves 9 units to down. This is, let's say it's minus 9. So from here, it goes to up. This is z equals y squared minus 9. Okay. Now, for y to be 0, at y to be 0, we get z equals x squared minus 9. It's the same. This is x and this is z. Its graph is starting from -9 to up. This is x squared minus 9. This is the graph of x squared minus. Now, it's the answer of second part. That's the answer for second part. Then, for the third part, for the last part, we should sketch the graph of the function. We should sketch graph of this function. In this function, we have three variables, x, y, and z. That means it's on xyz plane. It's not on the xy plane. Okay? Yeah. We are going to draw the graph of xyz plane. I'm going to draw it here. The vertical one is z. This is y, and this is x. Z, y, x. This is x, y, and z plane. This is negative part of z axis, and this is negative of x. This is negative of y. Okay. Where the function is starting? It's starting from -9. As you see, it is starting from -9 to up. One of these, this one is between z and x-axis. It's between z and x-axis. So it goes to up like this. Let's say this is -9. It goes to up like this. Then the other one is between y and z. As you see, this graph is between y and z. So between y and z, this part is not appeared here. This is the other part. It's in back. Okay. And what else do we have? We have these circles. At -9, it's only a point. At -5, it's a circle of radius 2. At 0, it's a radius of it's a circle of radius 3. Look, this is it's like this. As you see, it's a volume. It's not plane. ليه سيركن اللي شو بدنا نشارك. Yes, you should do one by one. I mean, you should first draw the level curves, then the traces. These two are traces. This and this one are traces. And then combine them all. Okay. Then you can draw one by one on the XYZ plane. As you saw when I did, I drew one by one. One by one. First, the trace when x to be 0, and then the trace when y to be 0, and then the level curves. I combine them and become this graph. Okay. So this is the graph of that given function. Now we have some common surfaces. We have some common surfaces. The first one is CZ equals x squared over a squared plus y squared of b squared. And generally, these are given. And generally given. But during the exams, A, B, and C may be numbers. May they are numbers. May A, B, and C are numbers. Then to sketch the graph, generally I'm gonna sketch the graph, and then I'm gonna change them to numbers. Then we sketch the graph. Okay. First, let's draw the graph for a specific numbers. We let A to be, let's say 4, let's say A to be 2, B to be 3, and C to be 1. It's randomly I put these numbers for X, for A, B, and C. These numbers are going to be changed during the exam. So the equation becomes Z equals X squared over A squared. A squared is 4 plus B squared. So Y squared of B squared is 9. What we do, we should draw these three things: the level curves, trace when X to be 0, and the trace when Y to be 0. We're going to draw these three graphs, then we combine them, we get the graph of the function. Okay?
Sir, I had a question. Oh, A, B, C. It's how much they give?
No, I just put these three numbers, these three values for A, B, and C. I said, may these are different numbers during the exam.
So
May they not be A, B, and C. Okay? لو أنا أجمع yes. I just put these three numbers randomly.
Okay, well, how we put any number we like?
No. You should draw itself. It's given like this. I'm gonna tell you how to draw the graph for this function. But first, we should draw the graph, this one, to be easier for you. يعني بزان شون جرافي أما كيش أو دواتي شون أو كيشين لما أو كيشين باشا سرتعمل حالة كيس كتابة موجودة جرافي كيشين بوتي كيشني خوتانا ليرة كوتما أي دو بي سي وسيكا أم بوتي كيشني خوتانا لو أنا شا بمشي ويبتان that may you'll be given this equation. How to draw the graph for this function? What should we do? As I said, we should draw the level curves and the trace when X to be 0 and also the trace when Y to be 0. First, let's draw the level curves. Look here, what are the possible values for Z? Can you give a negative value for Z? Can you give a negative value for Z? We cannot, because this is always positive and this is also positive, which is non-negative. Each of these are non-negative. They could be 0 or they could be positive, but they will never be negative. And the sum of two non-negative numbers is also a non-negative number. That means Z must not be negative. We can give positive values to Z. We just draw the level curves for Z, let's say to be 0, 4, and 9. Okay, you can give three different numbers to Z to draw the level curves. Let's draw it. Let's say 1 and 4. It's easier. 1 and 4. For the level curves, we let Z to be 0. Let Z to be 0. That means X squared over 4 plus Y squared over 9 equals 0. Since these two denominators are different, one of them is bigger than the other one, it means it's the equation of an ellipse. Ellipse, it's the equation of an ellipse, and its radius is 0. That means here, the graph for Z to be 0, the graph is only one point, which is at the origin. This is X and that's Y. That's X and Y. Then for Z to be 1, we have X squared over 4 plus Y squared over 9 equals 1. It equals 1. Here, this is equation of an ellipse. The focus, the foci are on Y axis because the denominator of Y is bigger than denominator of X. That means here. It's from -3 to 3 on y-axis, and on x-axis from -2 to 2. As you see, the denominator of x squared is 4. We just take the square root of it. Let me write down the general form of the equation of an ellipse here. We say x squared of a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. This equation of an ellipse, or it must be 1. Yeah, it must be 1. And also we can say y squared of a squared plus x squared over b squared equals 1. These two are equations of an ellipse. The first one, for the first one, we say A is bigger than B in ellipse. We say A is bigger than B. And we say, for the first one, the forces are on x-axis. And for the second one, the forces are on y-axis because the denominator of y is bigger. Because we said A is bigger than B. And here, this is A, the bigger one is A, and the smaller one is B. This is A squared. A squared is 9. How about A? A is 3. That means it's from -3 to 3. From the center, we have 3 units to up and down because it's on y-axis. And for this one, we say it's 2. On x-axis, we have 2. To the right and to the left. This is graph of the level curve for z to be 1. For z to be 1. It's just choosing. You can pick any number. Even if we can for this one, yeah, I'm going to do it. You see, for z to be 4, we say x squared over 4 plus y squared over 9 equals 4. What should we do? We should divide both sides by 4 first. We should divide both sides by 4 first to get 1 in the right hand side. To get the general form of ellipse equation. Here we get x squared over 16 plus y squared over 36 equals 1. This equation of the ellipse is also on y-axis. It's from -6 to 6 and here from 4 to 4. This is -6, this is 6, this is 4, it's -4. These are the level curves. As you see, it's an ellipse, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. This is the level curves. Then, to sketch the traces, I'm gonna clean these because here we found the graphs. It's enough. So for the traces, when x to be 0, and then when y to be 0. Traces, x to be 0. If x to be 0, what we get? Here in this equation, we equal x to 0. What we get? We get z equals y squared over 9. Z equals y squared over 9. And the graph of this function is a parabola. That's y, this is z. This is the graph of y squared over 9. Okay? And if y to be 0, then z equals x squared over 4. That's x squared over 4. Then the graph is
also it should not be 100% 0.
We just let it to be
Like,
0.
not negative 7. Y has 0.
It could be 0.
How much? Y squared is going to be 0. That's y squared over 9.
Okay, if the 0, if y is 0, 0 squared is still 0. Dividing by 9 is still 0. Okay. If we let y to be 0, we get 0 squared over 9, which is 0. So it gets 0. This is the graph of x squared over 4. Now we combine these three graphs together. This is x and y. This is similar to the previous one. This is similar to the previous one. But it's starting from 0. But the previous one is starting from -9. Let's combine these. From 0, we have a graph between y and z. We have a graph between y and z. So this is z, not y. Yes. How is it? We have this graph between y and z. So the graph is like this. And we also have a graph between x and z. It's like that. The other side is not appearing. Okay. And here we have the level curves. As you see, look, this is x and this y. The level curves are parallel to xy axis. The level curves, one of them is at the origin, and the other one, and then, goes on. But all the level curves must parallel to xy axis. As you see here, the level curves, this is x-axis and that's y-axis. The level curves are parallel to xy axis. Here it's 0. Then you have this. Again, we have this. This is the graph. Yes. We'll take a break for 10 minutes. Okay? Here we have equation of a cone. Cone بكردك إبراهيم كان يعني كوتشجت. To draw the graph of this equation, as the general form of the equation of a cone, to draw the graph, we should find three things, as I said. First, level curves. We are going to give 2 to 3 different values to z for the level curves. Then we are going to find the traces for x to be 0 and for y to be 0. And then we combine these three graphs to get the graph of the function. Here, for z to be 0, we are going to take 3 different values for z. Z could be 0, it could be 0 or positive. Here, we cannot give a negative value to z because we have square root, and the range of a square root must always be positive. We don't get negative values from the square root. We don't get negative values. That's why we cannot give negative value to z. We must give either 0 or positive values to z. We are going to give 3 different values to z, 0, 1, and 2. We let z to be 1. So we let z to be 0. Then we get this equation. It's the equation of an ellipse, and its radius is 0. I mean, it's only a point at origin. And here we say if z to be 1, we get c equals, as you have cz equals to that square root, we get c times 1 is still c equals the square root. Now we square both sides. We square both sides. We get this equation. And this equation this is equation of an ellipse. We say here, since a is the denominator of x squared, so now we divide both sides by x squared and we get a squared. So we divide both sides by c squared to get one in the right hand side. To get one in the right hand side. Here we get c squared a squared, and here we get c squared b squared. We add this denominator is bigger, so we say this is x and that's y. If this is bigger, we get an ellipse like this. Okay, if the denominators are equal, it's a circle, but if the denominators are different, it's an ellipse. Any of them, a x or y, has a bigger denominator, means the bigger coordinate is on that axis. Here we'll add x squared to be bigger. That means it's on x-axis. For z to be 2, we get 2c equals square root of x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared. Okay, by squaring both sides, we get 4c squared equals x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared. Now, if we divide both sides by 4c squared, here we get 4c squared a squared, and here we get 4c squared b squared. And we let b and we let a to be bigger, so the graph is like this. This is the graph. Okay. So these are the graphs of equations of these equations when z to be 0, z to be 1, and z to be 2. These are the level curves. Now for finding the traces. For traces, let's use another color. If a is greater, yeah. So if b is greater, it will be on y-axis. For traces, we let x to be 0. If x to be 0 in this equation, if x to be 0, we get cz equals y squared of b squared. So cz equals y squared over b squared in a square root. And we have equation of an absolute value. Here, by the definition of absolute value, we say if we have the square root of x squared, it means it's equal to the absolute value of x. The square root of something squared equals to the absolute value of the terms in the square root. That's it. But here we have square root of y squared over b squared, both squared. It means it's equal to the absolute value of y over b. That means z equals the square root of y. Okay, cz equals the square root of y over b. The graph of this equation is a V shape. This is y, this is z. It's a V shape like this, because it is absolute value. You know that the graph of absolute value is a V shape. And then for y to be 0, we get cz equals the square root of x squared over a squared, and it equals to the absolute value of x over a. The graph of this equation is also a V shape starting from 0. That's it. Now we have the graphs. Then we combine them. To combine these three graphs, first we should draw the traces, then the level curves. First, we draw the traces here. This is X, that's Y, and this is Z. Here, this graph is between X and Z. It's a V shape. It's a V shape. If this is X-axis, it's a V shape like this. Okay? Let me do it better. This is a V shape like this. And then we have another V shape between Y and Z. Between Y and Z. We have another V shape like this. We have one like this and one like this. Okay? Oh, sorry. And also, we have the level curves. We have the level curves. The level curves are like an X shape. Okay? It's here. Like this. Like this. Like this. As you see, it's a cone. It's like this. Okay? وكل له global project درجات. Okay? But you should give possible values to Z. And here we cannot give negative value to Z because it's undefined. It's not in the range. ليه ناتوان نرخي سالب بين بزيت بو لبر اوي اگر نرخي سالب انجام الرقي دوجا انجام الرقي دوجا سالب بيت لا لبر اوي ناتوان. Which one? Yes. If Z to be 2, we said 2C equals to the square root. By squaring both sides, we just square both sides. هردو لا دوجا او ما اندازه كده في بيشتري جماعه الان رقم دوجا كنما معناه واحد ولا ما دوجا نجا ما نسكتو. And the double cones is the same as the previous one. It's the same as the previous one, but here we have double cones, one to up, one to down. Okay. Here for the double cones, we can change this equation to Z over C by taking square root for both sides equals plus minus x squared of a squared plus y squared of a b squared. We have this, and here we have plus minus that square root. For the positive one, it's the same as the previous one, but for the negative one, it's to down. It's upside down. The same to upside down. But here, for the negative one, we must get negative values for Z. We must get negative values for Z. Okay? So that's all. We'll talk about this next lecture. Okay? That's enough for today.